Thank you so much for the time. Just now on the stage, you said if we don't collaborate now, medium-sized newsrooms will die. The question that I always have as a civil society representative, like looking at our industry from the outside now, or
Yeah.
from the other side, like
Yes.
why should we be so
Why should
desperate
you care? Why
to
should
save
people
media?
care?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are we losing? And I have a challenge for that.
Yeah.
Can you please elaborate why without using the words human rights and democracy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, at the Cannes Festival in 2024, I got on the stage after Elon Musk. Elon thinks that you can do away with journalists and that crowd will give you information. You know that as early as 2011, Andrew Keene wrote a book called The Cult of the Amateur. There's a reason why you study. There's a reason why journalists have standards and ethics, right? There's also a reason why our countries began falling apart, why violence began to increase when social media pumped toxic sludge into the public information ecosystem. No offense to content creators or influencers, journalists, we don't aspire to be that because we have a set of standards and ethics. It was never supposed to be about us. And part of the danger of social media right now is it's teaching a whole generation of journalists to make it about them, right? Public service, public good. Okay, so what will you lose if journalism is gone? You will lose accountability of the governments that lead because the government will do exactly what our government in the Philippines did with influencers. They'll pay them. That's called corruption, right? So, do you want to be insidiously manipulated? Do you want to actually get the facts for how your world is being changed? Imagine absolutely no public policy debates. That's what's happening on social media right now. It becomes a gladiator's battle to the death. That's not what politics is. No government can lead in an environment like that. And the sooner democratic governments realize this, the sooner they can put guardrails in place. The reason I say that radical collaboration is necessary is the spark that ignited this move that is so fast is technology, right? It's like kindling. Citizens in every country. Tech, social media just moved into our countries without even understanding the cultures in our countries, right? And part of the reason we say this is colonialism is it's literally code. It's like making one editor and replicating one white guy editor hundreds of millions of times, right? That's the way our public information ecosystem is governed today. That needs to change if democracy were to survive. I'll say one last thing. Some people will say, well, journalists are boring. We don't need journalists. I think this is where you can look at Rappler and what our young journalists have done, what you're doing, which is you have to take a 3,000 word investigative piece and make it accessible to your public. But you also don't want to dumb it down so much that your public becomes literally dumb, right? We want people to think. Last part is that the corruption of our public information ecosystem has led to a world on fire. If you look at the doomsday clock in January this year, it was 89 seconds to midnight. When we started, when Rappler was first attacked in 2016, it was over 2 minutes to midnight. And in January, there'll be a new one. Without information integrity, the ability of a citizen to tell fact from fiction, no citizen, no civic engagement can really happen. You cannot push for change because you do not have a shared reality. That's what's at stake for the world. And look, maybe we all want that. Maybe we want big tech companies to make a lot of money. Maybe we trust them. But if that happens, we're going to fall into a decade or more of something close to fascism because the biotech, which gives you our heart rate, our ends, the way our hormones, the way our bodies are regulated. When you put that together with information technology, predictive analytics, which is already what the algorithms are doing, we will be like the Matrix in Is it the red pill or the blue pill? It's literally, we will live in a controlled environment.
You mentioned countries that are democratic. Unfortunately, we don't have many of them left. According to Freedom House, 8 out of every 10 people in the planet are living under authoritarian rule. So it's more in line with my expectation. Is VDEM announced earlier this year that Mongolia is a lost democracy. Lost.
But you're still there.
Well, we
You're
still
trying.
identify as democracy.
Yes.
What should journalists working in the very few remaining democracies take up to themselves in this environment to safeguard journalism, to safeguard freedom of expression? What should we be doing?
I think people in general, so these are fundamental beliefs of mine. I think people are basically good. And I think people know what is fair. I think all world religions, regardless, the 5 major world religions, they have the same ideas of generosity, right? So I think the closest to something like that, where it's a meritocracy, where the world helps the poorest, where the world helps the person who has a disability, I think that's what a democracy tries to do, right? We can be different and stronger because we're different from each other. Those democracies today have the world on their shoulders. You may not have voted in the US elections, but that is impacting you. Do ya?
Yeah.
Right? So I think this is what's at stake in the world. And then, of course, the technology is godlike. What tech can do is godlike, and yet the men who control the tech, they are far from gods. They need far more wisdom before they play with the public at scale.
Just out of curiosity, this is not planned, but so those godlike people, like those people who are creating godlike technologies, are they just the way they are because we haven't communicated ourselves effectively enough?
No, I think that's just greed. It's greed and the incentive structure of American shareholders, right? They do this. But again, this is enlightened self-interest. We in Southeast Asia know this, in ASEAN, right? If they kill the democratic states that would allow freedom, democracies to thrive, then they're also killing their future. Because hand in hand with that goes climate change, right? Our world is stressed as it is. And to have the US president tell the United Nations that climate change is a hoax is unbelievable, right? So this is a moment. We're going to look back to this moment and see who stood up and who buckled. And if too few of us stand up, then the world will fundamentally change.
The radical collaboration you mentioned, I assume, is not just about collaboration between journalists, right?
No,
It should
no. Yeah,
have governments,
it's global
big
because
tech.
there's no way that we will be able to actually scale in the way these tech companies have, unless it's civil society. You need a whole of society approach, and I would include governments. You need civil society. You need journalists. You need NGOs, right? How does the state, the capturing a country, the destruction of a democracy? We already know it, right? Media capture, NGO capture, academic capture, judiciary capture, and then state capture. And this has happened in many countries around the world.
How do we get governments to listen to us?
I just testified at the EU Parliament yesterday. I mean, we try. We keep doing the stories for journalists and for civil society. This is the time, right? I think this is one of the things we're trying to figure out for the Philippines. What kind of legislation will help? And let's help the legislators if they can't understand it.
As a young journalist, Anna, do you have a question for Maria?
Sure. So we established the Facts First Mongolia
Yay!
Mongolian network, and I'm the responsible one. Yeah, and I have this question: how do we make the community stronger?
I'm going to tell you something really funny, right? Because we patterned our survival after the way terrorist networks are set up, right? If you think about it, it's in cells, right? Because the closer you are to the people you work with, the more trust is built. And so even our survival in Rappler, we created 3 different cells. I didn't know everything. I didn't want to know, because if I got arrested, I didn't want to give that up, right? But you build cells and then you roll it up like a game of telephone. But it's all about trust. And I actually think human beings want to trust. But you don't want to betray the trust is. And so you want to put in place structures and data that can show that. Yeah,
Thank you
good
so much.
luck.